and welcome to another episode of the WiEA Pod. Women in Estate Agency are so enthusiastic about sharing stories, and the podcast gives us the opportunity to do that. But we share the stories of men and women because we think it's really important to work together. Before I introduce you to my guest today, we just need to mention our partner, Digital Sparks. Now, for those of you that don't know who Digital Sparks are, they're doing amazing things working on content creation for people in the industry, so check out their Instagram account. Today's guest comes straight from, or almost straight from, the stage of the Women in Estate Agency conference, where he shared the stage with Ben Madden. There was a panel of men, which was controversial, but I think very successful. So today's guest is Daniel Keedwell. Daniel joined estate agency at the age of just 19, which is really unusual, and we'll find out a little bit more about that over the next 30 minutes. So, Daniel, welcome to Women in Estate Agency.
Thank you.
So grateful that you're here today. So, you joined estate agency with Fine & Country at the age of 19. Explain how that happened.
Yeah, it was a wild journey. Probably started a bit before that. So my granddad used to work in the industry. He worked at one of Fine & Country's core brands. And when I was young, I was probably about 10, I went on I didn't go on work experience. I went on viewings with him. He had no childcare. So I was about 10, and then I went back into the office and they said, if you ever want work experience, let me know. So I called them up when I was 15, and yeah, ever since then.
So that's the obligatory GCSE age work experience?
Yes, when I was 15.
And so it was a traditional office?
Yeah, traditional office. I spent most of my time shredding and making teas, to be honest. But no, every Saturday I'd come in, and then it just grew and grew and grew. And then I finished my A-levels and took the role at Fine & Country. So yeah, it's been different because I've got 4 years of experience, but I'm only 19.
Yeah, which is really unusual.
Yeah.
And I have to say, one of the things that during the course of these interviews that we've done with lots of women over the last few years is that people fall into estate agency. It's an accidental thing. With you, it seems to be a very conscious thing. But did you get any resistance at all?
Yeah, definitely.
From
I think
who?
A lot of the education system, I think it is geared up to go to university, and that's what people want from you. Mm-hmm. Over the 4 years, I didn't know I was going to end up in a estate agency. I could have gone to university. I could have made a lot of choices. But when I did say eventually that I was going to go full-time into a estate agency, there was a lot of resistance, a lot of, you shouldn't be doing this, it's not right for you, you need to go to university, you're not going to get very far. So there was a lot of resistance, especially from the education system, but...
So Did you apply to university?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
So my experience with my own children has been that schools are very keen for you to at least apply to university, because they want to be able to say this percentage of our sixth form are offered places at Russell Group universities. And they do put a lot of pressure on you to do that. So how did you, fight back? How did you say to, family as well, presumably were resisting?
I think family's always been sort of a big part of my life, and they were all very much whatever makes you happy, go for it. So they were great in that sense. But I think a lot of it was just staying strong and saying, no, this is what I want to do. And at the same time, university isn't a set, when you're 18, you've got to go. In 10 years' time, if I want to go, I can. But this opportunity came up at Fine & Country. It was a self-employed role, and it's an opportunity that I wasn't probably going to get again. So I've got to take it. And I said, if in 2 or 3 months' time I don't like it, I can always change my mind. So nothing is definite. But I think fighting back was important, because it could have been so easy just to follow the route and go to university. But essentially, it's not right for everyone.
It is, and you're right, it's not right for everyone, and not everybody needs to go to university either, but I think there's an assumption that perhaps they do. So having decided that you were not going to go to university, you said this opportunity came up. Did somebody approach you? Did you see it? Yeah,
so it was a bit of a crazy few weeks, actually. So I had an offer from my school, after I told them I wasn't going to university, to come back and train as a teacher.
Right.
And I'd taken that role. And then Joe Parry, who's the director of Fine & Country in my area, he called me up and said, we've got this role that's lined up. So I ended up doing a complete U-turn, but it's the best thing I think I've ever done. it's just there's so much freedom to it, and what I really value is that I'm in an industry that is very people orientated. Like for the first 18 years of my life, it was all intelligence based, whereas now it's more about you as a person, it's like your personality, it's about getting on with people. I think that's what I really, really value.
I think there's sometimes a misconception in a estate agency that the business is all about property.
Yeah.
I think it's about people first.
Definitely.
And then the property, and the two just go hand in hand. But you must bring a really sort of fresh, young approach to the business as well, because your perspective is going to be very different from many of your colleagues.
I think so, and I think working hand in hand with Fine & Country is a big plus as well, because it is ever evolving, and I think I'm lean more heavily on the social media side, on the content creation side, on building that personal brand. Whereas I know a lot of people would rather focus on that job in hand, but I think it's more about, especially as a self-employed agent, it's more about the people and you as a person than it is actually about market share or statistics. So that's exactly what I've been doing. I think that's the different perspective I've brought, which I think has been really interesting for people. Some very incredible agents that I work with, but maybe haven't really thrown themselves into that like I have.
You mentioned social media and your approach to that. I mean, that's obviously the cornerstone of your business. I've seen some of your content, and you're pretty good. So, do you see that as the future of estate agency? Should more agents be looking at that? Definitely,
I think so. I think when you go on a valuation, it doesn't matter at the end of the day what value you say, as long as it's roughly there. It doesn't matter what fee you quote. If they buy into the person, they'll buy into you. So that's what I always say when I go out, and social media is a huge part of that. And also at the same time, about half of the leads that we get through now are from social media and not from Rightmove. So it is the future, and especially at the higher level that we work at, Fine & Country being the sort of the upper quartile of the market, people aren't really looking at that on Rightmove if they're looking at that price. They're not looking at these £2 million houses. You have to show it to them. You have to present it to them, which is why social media or flyer drops or door knocking works, because you're presenting them the option instead of them going out looking for it, and that's part of the service really. And you've openly said that you're not a typical estate agent, not what people typically say. What do you mean by that? I think coming into estate agency there's still a lot of stigma, and there's a very stereotypical view of what an estate agent should be, and that's why the work the women in estate agency do is so incredible, because you picture maybe a 50, 60-year-old man, maybe a certain suit, driving a certain car, being a certain way. And that's why I think it's so refreshing walking in, and for people when I walk in, because I don't wear the beige colours. I'll wear pink most of the time. I'll be flamboyant, I'll be out there, I'll be young.
No pink today.
I know. I put pink on for the conference, and I thought I can't wear pink twice. But no, that's the thing, is that I will be more flamboyant, I'll be young, I'll be excited, and I won't be that typical estate agent. And whilst that is amazing for some people, there is a certain stigma for other people. I don't have a big flash car. I have a tiny little car. Look a bit like Mr. Bean, people say, but I turn up, and it doesn't matter at the end of the day. But there is a certain idea, especially among certain types of agencies, that that's how you should be. But the tide is changing, and I think. Do you think that's society that's telling us that that's what an estate agent should look like? So it's a process of education that sort of within the industry as well, that you don't need to look like that. I can see it, with my own colleagues. I can see that they've got very successful businesses, some of them without driving a certain car, without wearing a suit. There are some that will wear shorts to work, and that's fine for them if that works with their client. So one of the words that we use a lot in women in estate agency is authenticity, and to me that's just what you're saying. You're authentic in front of your clients, your prospective clients. You're authentic you. I'd rather be myself than pretend to be someone else, because that's what people are going to buy into. There are different types of people out there, and if everyone tries to fit into this one bracket, then not everyone's going to buy into that bracket. You're not going to have. Not everyone's going to want this certain type of person. Yes, I might not be for everyone, but there is a niche of people that will work with me because they like me. There's a niche of people that work with someone else. You've got to be yourself to find that niche. But they're not your people. The ones that don't want to work with you, they're not the people that you want to work with anyhow. Because it's quite a long relationship you have with it's mutually beneficial.
Yeah.
The people that I work with, are equally as important, the type of people they are to me than I am to them. I want someone that's going to work on the same level as me. I want someone that's going to have a relationship that is almost like a friendship. And I know people say that's a bit of a no-no in business, but I do want that friendship with my clients, because at the end of the day, being self-employed, I want to be able to message them on a Sunday evening and say, just so you know, I've just done this for you, and then they can get back. And I think people appreciate that different relationship. It's not that calling into an office, being transferred to 3 or 4 other people, trying to get through. It's a WhatsApp close relationship, and I think that's the important thing.
That personal approach to the business, which is obviously working very well for you. I mentioned that you were on the panel at the Women in State Agency conference, and thank you so much for doing that. We felt it was really important because we need to work together. We've said this many times. We need to work together to make improvements and changes within our sector. But one of the things that was discussed on that panel was men's mental health, and I know that's very sort of close to your heart. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? Why that's so important to you?
I think it sort of comes as part of parcel of growing up in the age of social media for me. There is a lot of different opinions, there's a lot of different things swirling about that you have to deal with and try and face head on. But it's not often talked about when it's men. I know we were saying at the conference that the number one word used by men who unfortunately consider or end up committing suicide is worthless. And you think, where's that coming from? And it's coming from the age we're living in now. There's so many different opinions, there's so many extreme opinions, and there's so many people telling you what you should be. And that's why it's so important to me, because I've felt that. I've grown up in an age of social media where I felt that I don't look good enough, that I'm not good enough in one way, I'm not good enough in another way. And it only took it's taken 19 years for me to finally start to realise a bit more that I can be authentically myself, and I can do what I want, and I can say what I want, and I can dress a certain way. But there is the idea that you have to look a certain way, you have to do a certain...
So did you feel that, as a younger teenager, did you actually make those changes? Did you try to fit in, or did you just accept, no, I can't, I'm different?
I tried to fit in. I think I went through copious gym memberships, but when it's just, you see it on Instagram, and you'll see it among even opinions of people that are teenagers of how you should look and how you should be. I went through a period when I might have been maybe 14, 15, where I just didn't eat lunch. Right. I just refused to in school. I didn't tell anyone until it eventually got flagged up. And that was purely because of the way I think I should look. And it's all sort of smoke and mirrors at the end of the day, because people aren't actually a certain way, and they're not always feeling amazing. And what is presented on social media isn't real, but it's what youngsters feel like should be them.
See, I think social media can be so dangerous. I mean, obviously it's very important to your business, but it can be very, very damaging in the wrong hands, and teenagers who are just finding their way in life. But we talk about men's mental health generally, and some of the statistics that were shared at the conference that Ben shared were absolutely shocking. And is it men generally who are looking at social media and thinking, this is what I should be doing, this is, I should be providing for my family in this way, I can't talk about this, I can't talk about mental health?
I think it's not just men that are facing this. The exact same for young women, young girls. But what men have is that stigma that they can't talk about it. As women's roles have changed, and rightfully so, there is sort of a level of they can go out and they can be the provider, and they can be a certain way, whereas there's not been a change of the script with men to align with that. It feels like as women's roles change, almost men should at the same time, and there should be a new script, whereas I think a lot of men still feel like they need to be this typical masculine, not talk about their feelings, and that's where I think social media affects them so much, because they don't talk about it.
But you're right, so there's got to be changes for men and for women. So as women's roles are changing, then men's roles are changing. But if they're not going to talk about it, and I know that Ben has a Facebook group where men can come together and talk about presumably, I don't know what they're talking about, and that's the whole point, but presumably they're able to talk about their mental health and their challenges, what it is to be a man in 2025 and going forwards. But part of it is because the women's roles are changing. There are women sort of rising up to the senior management, as it should be. but we've got to talk together, which is why we welcome men to come to the podcast, but also to come to the events as well, because it really is so important. So coming back to your social media, because you are a bit of an expert on social media, what would you say are the top tips for anybody who is maybe a self-employed agent or branch manager that wants to do more on social media? What should they be doing?
It's just more of a don't be afraid. There's definitely an idea that if you go on social media, you have to present a certain way, you have to be a certain way. If you're an estate agent, don't just post videos about houses. Don't just put a photo of a house on your social media and say, I've done Instagram, because that's not how it works. You've got to be yourself. And if you pop into the office one day and you buy a donut, take a video of the donut, take a video of yourself talking about the market. It's just throw yourself into it, because you learn and grow the more you do it with social media. I'm not an expert at social media because I'm of a certain age and because I've grown up with it. I'm an expert because I've thrown myself into it, and the more you do, the more you learn. If you look at anybody's first video, somebody that's big on social media, if you ask them what their first video is, they'd probably be ashamed to show you it because it'd probably be awful. But you look at where they are now, and that's purely just repetition, doing it over and over again. So I wouldn't say there's a top tip and there's any particular hacks. It's just throw yourself into it and don't be afraid to, because at the end of the day, there's loads and loads of people trying to do the same thing as you, and people appreciate the effort more than they judge you for what it's going to look like.
I think so many people are fearful about putting themselves in front of the camera, though. So they will happily go out and meet their clients, the sellers, their buyers, but putting themselves on in front of the camera is just a challenge. How did you ever face that, or did?
Definitely.
Right. Okay.
And it still is the case that if I take a video of myself in the car talking about my appointments for today, I'll do about 100 takes, and I'll go, no, I don't like this one, I don't like this one, and it is still the case, and there is still sort of a weird almost phobia of getting it wrong, of looking wrong. But at the end of the day, I think you've got to just absolutely go for it. And I think the worry isn't so much about them being on camera, it's about the perception of people that then see it. But these people are going to gain more from seeing you than they are if you're not there. So even if it's a bit messy, even if it's not quite right, you're more likely to gain business by being there than you are by not.
But it's coming back to the authenticity. So if they know you to be Daniel, in your hometown, then they're more likely to ring you when they need somebody to come around and value their home.
Exactly. I mean, my first ever manager when I was 15, he's gone on now, he's a fantastic agent, but he doesn't take himself too seriously. He posted a video last week of him in the pool at one of his houses with his trunks on. He was sort of on Lilos. What he was
selling, or one of his own houses?
Yeah, no, one of he was selling.
Really?
Yeah, on Lilos, he was having a great time. There were slow motion shots, he had pina coladas in his hand, and that's him, that's authentically him. It doesn't work for everyone, but if he wants to be silly, everyone knows him for it. So the amount of people who know him in the area as the person that does that, and you get business your way. As I said, no one size fits all when it comes to social media.
So going back to your very first video, how many takes did you do? Can you remember? You say you do 100 takes now. I bet you don't. I bet you're sort of spot on.
It must have been. It was definitely over 50. It's got to have been a lot, because you get to a certain point and you think, no, I don't like that. No, I don't like that. But then when you look through them all, I think the more you look through, the more you start to realise, actually, they're not that bad. In my head, you're just thinking, this isn't good enough, this isn't good enough, because you're worried about what people are going to think about you. But at the end of the day, if you just go for it, then it'll all be fine. I always say that, just throw yourself in. And
the mix of content that you put out, what percentage would you say with property and what percentage is Daniel?
It's probably around 50-50.
Right, okay.
There's a lot of property on there, but I like to think that when I'm doing property, I'm also doing me.
Yeah.
There doesn't need to be this distinguishable divide, because a lot of the posts I put up are my sort of video tours of property, but I like to think that is partially me. Like, there was a coming soon post for property I'm launching at the moment in South Gloucestershire, and that post was me on the balcony with the champagne in my hand, wearing all pink, and it was sort of zoomed out. But that is, one, advertising the property and lifestyle, but also advertising me. So I don't think there needs to be this distinguishable, well, today I'm going to post a me post and today I'm going to post a property post, because personality is what sells. So if you want to add that personality and add that lifestyle to your property post, then why not?
So sometimes it's donuts and sometimes it's properties.
Yes.
So I know obviously you're a huge supporter of women in estate agency, but you really enjoyed the community. So what do you get out of it?
I just thought it was incredible. So my first real experience with the group was the conference.
Right.
And the sense of community, the sense of everyone being together for one common cause was incredible. When I left, there were quite a few of my team that went that said that this was the best conference they'd ever been to, hands down. And it's just because everyone was there to support each other. Mm-hmm. And I think everyone also learnt so much that day. There was so much that I took from it that maybe I didn't realise before. And if everybody that's in that room takes a little bit, then we've progressed as a whole. And just the whole common aim of the Women in Estate Agency to really raise awareness and to push it out there has just been really
So have you had the opportunity to go to many conferences?
Yes, I've been to quite a few,
right.
Quite a few over the last sort of year, and you find a lot of them to be quite salesy, quite
right.
Pushing out sponsors and that sort of thing, which is great. And they're also very estate agency based, which is also great. But what I took more from Women in Estate Agency conferences, it wasn't necessarily all about selling houses.
No.
It was about how we as people get on and progress, and that is the important thing in this industry, because as we said, it's more of a people industry than it is a property industry. So that, I think it was an incredible event.
Yeah, I think it's sort of getting to understand people's journeys, their stories, and how they can progress and how we can help each other and sort of lift each other. Again, working together, men and women working together to change the industry. What's really important to you about Women in Estate Agency, as in the possible changes that we can make? What do you think?
I just think it's all about pushing women forward, mm-hmm. making sure they're not afraid to take that step into whether it be senior management in a estate agency or whether it be putting themselves on social media, putting themselves on video. But it was such a male and stale industry that any opportunity to shine a light on women in a estate agency is so important. So my first team, when I was at my previous company, when I was maybe 16, 17, was all women.
Right. The manager as well?
Yeah.
Right.
All women. It was a fantastic team, and I get on so well with all of them now, but it felt like there wasn't enough of a spotlight on them. At the end of the day, the people that are getting the praise and they're getting the plaudits are still the men. And I think there needs to be sort of a switch and a change, and the more awareness that can be raised, the better that can be.
So out of that team of women, did any of them go on to senior leadership roles, or have they stayed the same?
They've all sort of stayed where they are.
They stayed where they are.
Whether that may be their choice, I don't know.
It could be their choice, absolutely.
They are all fantastic agents, but I think that's the thing, is that if they have more awareness raised of sort of the issues they have. There's somebody I work with now, she's called Gemma, she's a fantastic agent, but she said that she puts a wedding ring on before she goes to all of her appointments.
Wow.
Just because she feels that women and men both feel more threatened when she turns out the appointment without a wedding ring on.
She's not married?
She's not married.
And she feels she has to wear a wedding ring?
Yeah.
I've not heard of that before.
That says, and I mentioned this to my team, and there were 2 or 3 other people who said the exact same thing, that they put on a wedding ring before they go to some appointments, and that blew my mind. And there's things like that you don't realise is happening. You may think...
I've seriously not heard of that before. So do they feel more confident going in with a wedding ring, so that they're not sort of alienating their customer?
Yes, that, and also I think they feel more confident that it's going to be an appointment based on what they can offer, instead of them as a person being single and then being maybe a man there. And I thought that was incredible, because I don't think about that when I go into an appointment. I'll go into an appointment, I'll sit there, I'll chat, I'll leave. Yeah. But there's these thoughts that go on in the background that I think a lot of men don't realise are happening, that it's so important to shine light on as well.
That's incredible. Well, thank you for sharing that. I'll make sure that is discussed in the group. And the final question is about who you would like to see in your chair in future, as in a future guest for Women in Estate Agency podcast?
I think just carry on with young people. Carry on with people that are my age, people that are a bit out of the box. There are so many people out there that maybe because of their age are sort of beaten down a bit and told that they're not ready to move on to the next step, they're not ready to push themselves out there. But I think shining a light on people my age is so important because we are the future of a estate agency, essentially.
Indeed, absolutely.
And if you want, and as we all want to move forward and be more progressive going forward, I am the people and we are the people that are going to be forefronting that. So the more spotlight that can be given to those sort of people, the better.
Got to find them.
Got to find them, yeah.
Well, thank you very much for coming along. And if anybody out there that's Daniel's kind of age that wants to be a guest on the podcast, do let us know. Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you.